Hi, and welcome to the Long Range Shooting and Custom Rifle Building podcast presented by Wolf Precision Incorporated, where we learn about and share long range shooting and custom rifle building. I am your host, Jamie Dotson, and welcome to the show. Hi, and welcome to episode 223 of Wolf Precision's Long Range Shooting and Custom Rifle Building podcast. I'm your host, Jamie Dotson, and welcome back to the show. In this episode, we're going to continue on our series of the 3 personalities of reloading. And in this one, we're going to get into my favorite, the competitor. So it ought to be a great podcast. So without further ado, here we go. All right, before we get started, I want to say a quick thank you to a couple of our sponsors. We want to say thank you to MDT, maker of fine rifle chassis, probably some of the best chassis on the market, as well as one of the largest selections of not just chassis, but a lot of the accessories that you're going to want to use when you get into them. So they make everything from the J. Allen, the ACC Elite, right down to the Oryx, which is one of my favorite unsung heroes of the product line for $439. Fully adjustable, great little chassis. We've built lots of hunting rifles on them. So if you want to learn more about MDT or look at their selections to upgrade your rifle to get you a stock that fits you perfectly, stop over to mdttac.com. That's mdttac.com. We'd also like to thank Krieger Barrels. Krieger is a maker of fine cut rifle barrels. They are a family-owned and operated business out of the great state of Wisconsin. They are constantly putting barrels up for sale on a page called Krieger Direct, where you can log on and every morning search for new barrels that are coming up so you can purchase a barrel and get it quickly. So one of the things about custom-made rifle barrels is they take time, and in some cases 9 months to a year. So if you want the best and you need it now, stop over to Krieger Barrels and log on to Krieger Direct and just keep an eye on the website because they constantly try to put product up there for sale for customers that really don't want to wait 9 months or a year to get something. So you can stop over to Krieger Barrels and log on to Krieger Direct and see what barrels they have in inventory today. So we got into the first 2 personalities of reloading, and the last one is the competitor. This one is unique. I mean, we could play this for almost any part of shooting, whether it's shooting in competition in a mindset, trying to do the best that you can do and not be your own worst enemy. But in reloading, there's a couple things to talk about here that really can get a shooter, new shooter, and especially one that wants to compete, which we all want to, right? We all want to throw our hat in the rings. We all want to do well at things that we do. Nobody wants to just lose at everything, right? It's in our DNA. I mean, it's really, we want to succeed and we want to see improvement. That's hard work, and that's the results of hard work, right? But that said, I've shot matches with guys that, honest to goodness, I went to a match one time. It was a team sniper match back when Black Hat Tactical was teaching it. And I believe it was in the mid-2000s. It was held at a great range here in Pennsylvania. And the gentleman that decided we were going to team up together, a great guy, yeah, great shooter, but just over the top for the win. Like, I mean, this guy, if he wasn't winning, he was just miserable. I mean, he was just 100% alpha male. And we did well in the match. We took second place in the match. I ended up taking first overall for the individual score, which, I got lucky. I got a couple extra shots in and scored a couple extra hits. But for me, going to a match isn't really about the win. I look at matches like that's my training. That's me throwing my hand in the ring and seeing if I'm improving every day. So if I leave a match, whether I leave in first place or 30th place, it doesn't matter. When the match is over, the chips all fall where they are, right? Somebody's just a more skilled shooter than you. And what I try to pay attention to when I go to a match is I try to find the things that I'm the weakest at or things that I just struggled with. Maybe a position I never shot before. And I would always go home and rather than practicing what I was great at, I would practice what I was weakest at and just trying to become a really great all-around shooter that I can do pretty well at most of the positions. I might not be the best off of any position, but I can hold my own, right? And that was my personal achievement, is trying to just grow every day that I went to a match, every day I went to the range, just to improve. But, I mean, I know for an example of a guy that went to a match, camped on the range the night before because they allowed camping, and went around at like 2 a.m. and took pictures of every target on the property and ranged them. And I mean, he had notes out the wazoo. I'm looking at him and I'm debating on whether or not he's crazy, right? I'm like, I don't think the match directors would have liked that all that much. Somebody wandering around a property and taking pictures of all their targets, especially at 2 a.m. B, the landowner probably, if he's seen the light out there all over the place, who knows? But anyway, there's tons of personalities. Where they get into trouble in the reloading is they use that as a tool in the tool belt rather than just a necessity part of shooting. And I want to dive into this pretty seriously because you can really get yourself hurt on this one. Hurt or even worse, right? So the first two things I want to talk to you about is the risk factor that people are willing to tolerate when it comes to reloading. So they think that, well, if I can't beat them at fundamentals and I can't beat them at reading the wind and I can't beat them at fast bolt manipulations, I'll shoot faster than they are. And that's going to get me that extra, keep in mind, they're only getting an extra 100 feet per second. In most calibers, that's a 1 to 3% increase in velocity. That is not going to get you a win. Just as many misses go left and right as they do high and low, and just as many are caused by shooter error than you picking up 1% additional increase in velocity. But the risk they're willing to take is just mind-blowing. Like, I liken it to this. Let's just say, I don't know if they have this out there, but let's just say we're racing airplanes, and we're racing from city to city. They're our fastest time. We all have to fly the same airplane, same horsepower, blah, 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 right? Most people would leave like maybe a 5-gallon reserve in fuel. And that's in case they have to do a couple go-arounds or they have to deviate off course and land somewhere. They're going to give themselves some breathing room for fuel. If you left it up to their own devices, somebody would calculate and leave, honestly, a half a gallon more than they need. They would risk their life to save that 40 pounds in weight to get there faster. And they would justify in their own heads the increase in speed, how much faster they're going to get there, and they'll justify it. I mean, think about, hey, rather than giving yourself enough fuel to go around or to keep yourself in the air an extra 20 minutes, you're going to go ahead and cut your reserve down to 1 gallon or a half a gallon, whatever it might be. The other part is people feel safe doing it. They feel that firearm, because it's everything in that rifle case is encased in steel, right? So you close the bolt and you're thinking, I've got this bolt in front of my face and I've got this receiver and barrel wrapped around this rifle case. And if something goes horribly wrong, that's a lot of steel, right? Well, it isn't. And if you really thought about it differently, of pushing pressure, I always say, like, if you ever see a kid doing prayer, right, and they've got their palms together, fingers straight together, and they've got this cute little posture that they hold their hands together, flat against each other perfectly. Now, I want you to take that, and I want you to point your fingers away from you, and then I want you to bring your thumbs up, raised in the air, and I want you to touch your nose. The reason I want you to do that is from your thumb to the tips of your fingers is how far away that explosion is happening from your face. So imagine me taking some type of explosive, sticking it in a steel container and having you hold it in your hand and saying, don't worry, this will contain the pressure. It's not going to blow up. How far away from your body would you possibly hold that? All right, if you were forced to hold it, you would be holding that as far away as your arms could stretch. And then you were thinking, man, if I can just hold it by my fingertips, I get an extra 2 inch out there, right? But when it comes to reloading, we're going to take that same container and we're going to place that 4 inches in front of our nose. That's what we're doing. We're taking that container full of explosives. It's going to go off. And we're trusting that container is going to hold that. And rather than holding it at arm's reach, or in most cases, hiding behind a barrier, you're going to take that and you're going to bend your elbows and you're going to bring that steel container and you're going to place it 4 inches in front of your nose before it goes off. Think about that for a minute. So when people start reading all this BS online about pushing pressure and how modern cases can hold the additional pressure, we see it at gun shows I've talked about here on the podcast before, where I literally had a guy walk up to me and he's like, hey, dude, I shoot a 308 in F-class. Will your cartridges hold 80,000 PSI or something like that? And I was like looking at the guy and I'm like, go away. And I just turned my back to him and went and talked to another customer. And Bruce, who was with me at the time, later that evening he said, man, you were pretty rude to that one guy. And I'm like, well, I don't know if I was rude to him, Bruce, but I'm not going to give him the time of day. I'm certainly not going to build him a rifle. He's crazy. And he's willing to risk everything, including the people around him, to try to win. And those are bad people to hang out with. Those are really bad people to do business for, right? And so maybe they get the point. If I don't give them the time of day and they're like, wow, maybe I said something wrong, or maybe I better rethink, maybe I am sort of crazy, right? But I get really tired of that. And it's promoted constantly. So if you watch a lot of the YouTube videos out there and such, you'll see people that are talking about, they're able to get this pressure up. They're able to get more velocity. Oh, hey, we can do this, we can do that. And don't worry. This goes back to that customer that was blowing primers out the back of his cases and yet wouldn't contact the guy that made him the ammunition, and still was not in his own mind willing to think about, hey, maybe this is dangerous. And the other part is again, I'm not faulting anybody. I'm saying that if you have this personality, you can be your own worst enemy. Like, we're all competitors. Everybody is. And we have to be careful that we don't let that get the best of us. We have to be careful that we don't go and say, hey, I'm going to risk a little bit here because I want to win that bad. You have to put some guardrails up to make sure that you don't let the worst of you get the best of you. And in shooting, it's almost tolerated in a lot of ways. At matches, it was amazing. Like, even in the 2000s, you would have rain come in or snow come in and people's rounds would get wet, and probably 10 or 20% of the bolts would stick closed as soon as the rounds got wet. So if you get water on a rifle case and you stick it in your gun and you shoot it, it creates a little bit of a hydraulic lock. So if you're pushing high pressure, it creates a lot more extra pressure, and a lot of times will stick your bolt closed. You're beating your bolt open with a stick or a rock or something, trying to get that piece of brass out of there. Happens all the time. And then you combine that with using suppressors, which can create back pressure. And so it's not that people don't do this. They do it really easily, and they don't put the safeguards up. They don't think about, like, for example, when I talk about reloading, is going by the book. Purchase the book or go online to all the major manufacturers' websites, like Hodgkin's Powders is a good one, and just look and see what everybody's saying the max load is and stay away from it. I often find, here's the mentality. There's two nodes, technically speaking, as you'll hear people say this all the time, and accuracy nodes, right? There's a high node and a low node. They'll find the low node, and then they'll keep going up in powder charges until they perceivably find the next node. And sometimes it's over max. So rather than just shooting the low node and enjoying a really accurate rifle, they always want to go to the higher load. They think that that's better, and they're willing to risk it. If it's over max, well, it's only a grain over, it's fine. You're running your brass, you're risking all kinds of bad stuff happening. If something happens to the rounds getting wet, your powder thrower goes off a little bit, you don't pay attention to a couple small things, you switch to Magnum primers. Like, I don't get the Magnum primer thing in standard rifle cartridge cages. We hear this all the time. I don't believe there's very few major manufacturers that are telling you to load any 308s or 260s or 6.5 Creedmoors with Magnum primers. But you'll see this stuff on the internet, and people buy into it for whatever philosophy is behind it, and they'll go and buy Magnum primers, and they won't adjust their powder charges for it. And it's amazing. So when we talk about the different personalities of reloading, the competitor, we all fall into this a little bit. So regardless of, whether you're doing it to save money or whether you're doing it because you love the art and craft of it, that competitive side can creep in there ever so slightly. And when it does, man, it can come out and get you. So do yourself a favor and, put safety first. Think about, how close to your nose that explosion is happening and how much you're willing to risk. And I'll be honest, there are guys over the years that I've refused to build for because of this. I just tell them, look, I'm sorry. You're known to run high pressure. One guy blew a gun up, not mine, thank God. but he won a rifle and had some gunsmith build it. He was always pushing pressure. Like, he thought that the secret to him winning was just outrageous amount. And, the ranges would never say anything. The matches wouldn't say anything to him. He'd get stuck bolts, beating bolt handles open, blah, blah, blah. And of course he would DQ for that particular relay, but they wouldn't DQ the rifle, and they certainly wouldn't DQ him and say, look, hey, this is happening way too much. What are you doing, right? Instead, it was probably a year after that he actually blew a rifle up on the firing line. Don't be that guy, right? Don't allow yourself to go there. Put some safeguards in place. Commit to not loading over max powder, regardless of what you read or hear. And the other part with the competitor part, I always say go in undergunned and overskilled, right? Do not give yourself any tactical advantage and earn the win. Win with talent, not horsepower. I have literally, honest to goodness, taken 223 bolt guns to sniper matches for fun and have placed in the top 10 and the top 20 of 60, 70 world-class shooters. Was I going to win? No, at the long stuff, sometimes I don't get the points because they're hard to spot. Even though they hit the steel, they barely shake it. And back in those days, there wasn't really hit indicators to flash. So you got no calls all the time. It happened. But I've gone in and I've gotten in the top 10 with a rifle. And the reason I did it, I'm sharing this with you, is I didn't want to have any advantage. I wanted to go in undergunned and see if I can't just put my skills to the test and compete. And it taught me so much about my own shooting abilities. It taught me so much about, hey, this is as much about skill and craft as it is about caliber selection. You can go in undergunned and still do really, really well in matches. And, you didn't use any technical advantage. You didn't use any tactical advantage. You didn't have the highest BC bullet with the fastest cartridge and the greatest new cartridge ever designed. You went in with a cartridge that shouldn't compete, and you competed with it. And you competed with skill set. And I was liking it to this. One more example, right? I always say, like Richard Petty, who had passed, or any NASCAR driver. Think of any crazy driver out there, right? They don't need that sports car to probably bring you closer to going to church every Sunday morning. They could do that in a minivan. They are such skilled drivers that if you put a whatever minivan on the racetrack and you get in the back seat, I will guarantee it. It's sort of like how there's no atheist on a crashing airplane. You probably won't leave that minivan an atheist, or at least you're going to say the man upstairs' names a couple times as he hits these turns, right? He is an extremely skilled driver. He is a professional, and it doesn't matter the tool. He can use it to its fullest advantage and probably scare the living daylights out of you. So think about that. Like, become the better marksman, become the better shooter, and don't worry about the advantages. Now, is he going to win any NASCAR races with it? I don't think so. He's going to get destroyed if he tries to take a minivan to a major race. So now it's skill set and equipment, right? And just having the best of everything that he can get. And, some NASCAR drivers, I'm sure, get caught cheating as well, trying to cheat their way into that circle rather than earn it with just some good driving skills, right? So remember, that is 4 to 5 inches in front of your face. Play it safe. Have fun with it. Don't get caught up too much in the competitor side. I know I just picture throwing a hat in a ring and just doing the best I can do. There's so many great shooters out there. You're not going to beat everybody on their best day every day. I always say that at any given match, 20% are competitors, 80% are participants, and anyone can fall into those categories. You could be the greatest shooter in the world and go to a match, and in that particular match, you're a participant. Your head's not in the game. You're just not quite there. You're worried about things at work. In those cases, just keep shooting. Have fun. Forget about the score. Forget about where you're at. Forget about trying to win. Forget about the pressure of everybody watching you. Just shoot. And it's funny when you don't pay attention to the score, how all of a sudden you can make up so much lost ground. All of a sudden you're back in your A game again. Now, you still might not win the match, but you're back in it, And my personal thing is I try not to pay attention to scores. I know it might be hard now because a lot of the scores are written down as you keep moving along, but I don't listen to my score. I don't pay attention to anybody else's. I don't care where I'm at. And if people try to tell you, just, hey, don't tell me that. Because if you know you're winning, well, now you got all this pressure on you. You don't want to screw anything up because you're winning. And you're thinking, well, if I can stop now, I won. Now I got to keep shooting at this level, right? And then if you're losing or someone says, dude, you're in like 60th place and there's only 61 shooters here. Well, at least you're not in last. And they walk away, your head's in the bucket. Like, you're like, oh man, that sucks. So don't worry about where you're at. At the end of the day, it all falls out. It all works itself out in the wash. And it's just you against yourself, throwing your hat in the ring and seeing how you're doing as a marksman. And then look at the score and see how you're doing. Like, oh man, I'm in the top 10. I'm in the top 10%. I'm in the top 50%. I'm getting better. I'm seeing improvement every time. That's what you're going for. So just caution on the competitive reloader, right? Caution on things that you read on the internet that are going to give you an edge. Caution on doing sketchy stuff that in your heart that, hey, this quite doesn't sound right, but they're saying that they get good results and you're going to win a match. So be careful. All right, so a couple things I want to touch base on, and before I do, want to say thank you to our last sponsor. TriggerTech is a maker of fine rifle triggers. We recommend them for all of our rifle build kits here to make them in lots of different makes and models. They also make them for lots of different receivers and rifles, and it's a great way to upgrade your rifles. So one of the reasons why I like them so much is they are one of the easiest to install, one of the easiest to adjust, and one of the safest triggers in my mind on the market. So if you want to upgrade your game and you would like to do it with the trigger, you can stop over to TriggerTech.com and look at their fine selection today. That's TriggerTech.com. So we just posted up another one of our reloading videos. We also posted up a couple videos on YouTube that are starting into our rifle maintenance series. They all went up this week. If you get a chance, stop over to Wolf Precision's YouTube channel. You can see them for free. We are working hard on all the videos that are going on the Wolfpack. So the Wolfpack is really 3 different schools going on at one time. We have our online long-range shooting school. We have our reloading class, which we're actually posting videos up on now. We just posted one up on yesterday on safety. And then we're getting into our prosumer gunsmithing class. And in that prosumer gunsmithing class is going to be a rifle maintenance series. The rifle maintenance series is going to be for free. So a lot of the videos that we post up, they are posted up both on Patreon and Vimeo, which is how we post and host all of our videos and protect them. And that's to keep some, quote unquote, entity out there that controls a lot of this video content decides to shut us down because they don't like what we do for a living. At least we don't lose our life's work. So we are posting everything up on all 3, and some of the free stuff that we're able to post up on YouTube just to give some good advice on some of the things that we see over the years, we post up on YouTube. So you can stop over to Wolf Precision's YouTube channel and see the last couple of videos we posted up. One of them was on a rifle maintenance thing, and they're really going to get into the rifle maintenance stuff. I really don't know what people think. It's just a nonstop for 20-something years of dealing with a lot of things that either people have heard from a friend or things that they've seen or things that they read online. And we're constantly combating that. We did a barrel change for a customer, and I did a video on the barrel when I took it apart because I was just flabbergasted. I didn't know what to say. I will be reaching out to that customer here when we get ready to ship out his barrel to try to go over some tips and tricks and sort of ask some questions as to what went wrong. But if you want to see something really interesting, stop over and take a look at the video we just posted up. It's really crazy. Anyway, so when you go to our website and you look at the Wolfpack and you look at our different schools, we are going to start highlighting in orange the videos that are free. So if you'd like to join the Wolfpack and you'd like to take our online reloading class, it's $49 a month and it covers all 3 classes. So it's $600 if you'd like to sign up for the entire year. But if you think about all the gunsmithing schools that are out there charging $18,000 and $20,000 and $60,000 for a course, and you think about all the other inconveniences of traveling to some of these schools, even at $600 for 3 different classes, we don't think it's too bad of a deal. And we include them all under the same thing. So it's $49 a month and you can actually enjoy all 3 classes. The reloading class is kicking off now. And so is the prosumer gunsmithing class. The online long-range shooting school, of course, it is up and active. But in there, we're going to start highlighting in orange the links that you can actually watch the videos for free because we do want to give back. We want to try to share with guys that are getting into reloading and girls that are getting after this, that are just enjoy the art of shooting, and try to just give them some common sense general maintenance stuff, things that we've learned over the years of doing this for, 30, 35 years now, and just enjoying long-range shooting for probably 40 plus years, and just all the good information that we can put out there to hopefully give somebody a helping hand and sort of weed through some of the I don't want to say misinformation, that term is just overused, but just bad stuff that people share and taking care of your rifle. If you take care of it properly, it'll last you for a long time, and it's a very simple, easy thing to do. So the rifle maintenance series is going to be inside the prosumer gunsmithing class. A lot of those videos are going to be for free. And again, you can see them on Patreon. They are open to the public there for free. If you'd like to support the podcast, of course, you can sign up for, we call it like our coffee club, it's $3 a month and support the show. But if you sign up for the Wolfpack, then you get access to everything that we have posted up both on our online long range shooting school, as well as all the major content that we're going to be putting up with the reloading and the prosumer gunsmithing class. Now, the reason we post it up on Patreon, just to go into a little bit more of an explanation, they do require that you're 18 years or older and you actually have to show proof. That sort of protects us and allows another entity to take care of all the billing and everything else that gets involved into it. If we tried to do it here on an individual basis, it would just be difficult and probably drive our poor office manager crazy. The Long Range Shooting School for 2025 has 2 slots left for the year. If you'd like to join us, you can stop over to Wolf Precision and sign up today. We'd love to have you. 2 slots left, and we're full for the year. Super excited. The last thing I want to touch base on before we wrap up this series is we are going to get into some of the podcasts where we're going to get back into some of the general gunsmithing and stock selections and some of the new stuff coming out for 2025. One of the things I'm looking forward to is getting some of the new Leupold Mark IVs in. Leupold did re-release those, and talking to everybody that's shooting them, American made, which means a lot to us here, that it's just a great value. And I think a great piece of equipment for a company that still has 600 plus employees here making product in the United States. And we try to support them the best we can. We are actually going to get a couple of them in for testing and some review. And we might actually put a couple on the Long Range Shooting School's firing line just to give them a good go and see how they do. So super excited for that. And then, of course, we're going to get into some of the armory stuff and prosumer gunsmithing stuff here over the next several podcasts as well. If you're new to the podcast and you'd like to learn more about Wolf Precision, or if you'd like to learn more about the fundamentals of marksmanship, there are lots of older archived podcasts that we have done that cover a lot of fundamentals of marksmanship when it comes to shooting. So you can go back through all of our old, it's not like where we just do a podcast every day on a random thing, and a lot of the early podcasts were all based on the fundamentals of marksmanship and rifle building. And so there's a lot of stock discussions. There's a lot of barrel discussions. So if you want to go back through all of our archives and do some searches and look for some of these podcasts, I think they're well worthwhile, including the 4 pillars of marksmanship, as well as building a custom rifle. All of those podcasts I think are worth taking a look at and having a listen to. So I want to say thank you to everybody who's taking the time to listen to the podcast. If you enjoyed the podcast, you would like to leave us a nice comment down below. We really appreciate that. And if you enjoyed the podcast and you would like to share it, we really appreciate that as well. It helps us a lot in our standings. I believe in the sports industry and the outdoor, we're now in the top 200 and top 150 in the United States. And we're in the top 4%, or I believe possibly even the top 1% now worldwide in our industry. So we're really, really, really doing well with the podcast. We certainly appreciate it. And it wouldn't be without you listeners tuning in and checking it out and enjoying all the content and sharing it as well. So thank you for listening. We certainly appreciate it. And anything that you would like to say or do to share it to help the show, we certainly appreciate that as well. So thank you everybody for taking the time to join us. My name is Jamie Dotson. I'm your host, and you're listening to Wolf Precision's Long Range Shooting and Custom Rifle Building Podcast.